This is part of Thomas Cookson's review, the final portion, his review of Dragonfire. It's titled Off the Deep End, published 26th the 1st, 17. I think Thomas Cookson, despite disagreeing with my own takes, he's probably my favourite writer or reviewer, I suppose, of Doctor Who. When you say writer of Doctor Who, writer on the subject of Doctor Who, more accurate, rather than script writer. Anyway. When the brain of Morbius pastiche to a style of hammer horror, it worked because it made that aesthetic feel like it belonged as part of a homogeneous whole, that it was an essential part of its canvas. This is just a bizarre, awkward turn and comes off as a aimless steal. I guess the mute little girl's supposed to be this story's newt. Naturally, Ace was conceived in the mould of Ripley as a tough heroine. I really do get the sense Cartmel was disappointed, but the Sayward-era doctors were characterised far closer to the treacherous appease of Burke. But Ripley wasn't a strong heroine because she never screamed or because she overcame her fears and faced her demons. Ace here is just far too ridiculously macho and unfazed. Howard Martin highlighted how Ace's backstory involving homemade bombs and time storms that brought her here has to be the most slapdash piece of backstory ever written in this show. Frank Dane cites it as typical of the Carmel era's comic strip shorthand writing. To me, it's more a case that the trimming of episode lengths meant such shorthand was necessitated. Indeed, I feel this was all rushed, and given future hindsight, they'd probably have introduced Ace in Paradise Towers instead. Ace's backstory would make sense to a producer who's been writing program guidebooks. It immediately fills her character by with a few lines of something distinctive and intriguing. It works less so as sardonic exposition in a pantomime production. It just seems a reckless abuse of coherent narrative, but thus far held the show together by not treating the audience like gullible fools who will accept any sloppy nonsense. As Doctor Who fans, we're naturally uneasy with pantomime's black and white worldview and childish moral complacency of determining who's clearly the bad guy. We find that horribly conformist and would rather believe in there being different kinds of truth and beauty. The show's best moments are about how right and wrong isn't a black and white issue, so it bothers me when fan revisionism tries claiming the show always was that black and white. Lawrence Miles has said, however, that the show often was black and white, and in fact it really only worked as compelling television by going to extremes, and that this was crucially missing from the Williams era's loose self-parody and why J&T's pantomime aesthetic initially resembled a return to form. Kane does make an evil enough cult leader to satisfy as the desired villain, and his killing by his icy touch is visceral and horrific. But as for the Doctor, he's an idiot and in ways fatal to the story. At one point he encounters Bella as trying to hijack a shuttle off-world to escape Kane's hold over her in her rare moment of lucidity, given Kane's long-term grooming, brainwashing influence over her, and the Doctor ruins this by telling her and Glitz they are their debt to Kane that needs repaying, and so she loses her gumption and returns to Kane, and dies. This Doctor's just a destroyer of hope. In this moment we see he has no wisdom and really is as clueless as the show's makers and not someone to place our trust or investment in. That moment might make you regret that you ever did. You might as well tune out there and then. You're smarter than this. Fans absorbed in the pantomime spirit of shared entertainment, of a folk memory of the 80s that insisted the show never went wrong, may continue to turn a blind eye and believe it's all a good-natured pantomime, but for me it just leaves too nasty an aftertaste.